Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 15th, 2021. The time is 10 a.m. and I would like to call to order the Committee on Community Planning and Economic Development. The first item on the agenda is the chairperson's roll call, and I will go ahead and do that. My name is Basha Adamczak, 7th Ward City Councilwoman and Committee Chair, and with us we have from administration, we have Dawn Montero, Beverly Hosey, and Nikki Posterly, Councilwoman Lauren McNally, Committee Member, Councilwoman Samantha Turner, Valencia Mero, Jennifer Ozinger, Councilman Julius Oliver, and Committee Vice Chair, and Rick Deek. The next item on the agenda is new business, and we will go ahead and start with the proposed 2019 Annual Action Plan substantial amendment. And just to preface quickly, the CDA department made available for us all of the applications. They were available at the clerk's office for us to look at, if we had any questions. But Nikki, if you can go over everything, like an overview, kind of what the process was, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Through the chair, we received several applications for our annual action plan that is due yearly, where we accept the applications, review the budgets, score them, rate them. We've shared that information along with the applications in our scoring rubric with council back in March for review. And now we're at the point where we're closing up the public display period. So prior to the public display period, we're seeking council's approval of the budget so that we can move on and turn those numbers over to HUD in order to complete the this year's annual action request. The first item that we'd like to discuss is an amendment of the annual action plan substantial amendment. We received an additional amount for food services, $310,869 that we'd like to add to that 45th year activity line item, food banks and food delivery services for seniors. This was a new amount received by HUD. So we need to add it to the current annual action plan. So that's the first item that we're seeking.
You said 310 and what was it?
10,869 was an additional amount received from HUD. So that would change our annual action plan that was already approved, the total amount from $2,091,689 to $2,402,558.
Okay, and it's in the yeah, the numbers are in the ordinance and the amendment. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Any questions on that for us?
Samantha?
Thank you. So you received this additional amount recently and you've already expended it out into the community, or you've just received that? Can you just give me clarity on that on the timeline?
Through the chair, we just received an additional amount that we have to add to what was already approved by council last year.
Okay.
So we're adding it so that we can spend it and get it out in the community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Nikki.
The second item is the 47th year. Can we move on or do?
Yeah, that's
okay. Fine. 47th year home investment partnership grant. In your packet that was sent, this is the right one. Mm-hmm. You should have received a spreadsheet that says 2021, 2022 home applicants, along with our recommended budget. So yes. What we received, okay.
No,
so
go ahead.
The requests that we received were from Building Neighborhoods of Youngstown as well as YNDC. And we've also provided the scoring matrix along with those applications.
Somebody else.
No, just go ahead.
Okay.
Beverly would like to add some information on the HUD. I mean, on the
Okay,
home.
there's two home applications, one from BNOY, one from YNDC. BNOY, focusing on rehabilitating 35 homes, deteriorating homes. And YNDC is actually doing a strategic acquisition rehab of homes. So those would be homes that would be for sale once they are brought up to code. So the home dollars bring houses all the way up to code.
Samantha?
Thank you. So BNOY is rehabbing residential in people that are in the house, and then YNDC is moving towards just rehabbing homes that are currently vacant and bringing them up to code to make them for sale.
Yes, those are two different home type projects from HUD.
Okay. And I don't know if it's going to come up later on, but YNDC normally does in-home rehabbing. Are they moving away from that, or is that just?
No, they've always done this. And the home is either it's home owner occupied or strategic acquisition rehab. So there's two types of projects, and YNDC typically does both, but this year they're only doing the strategic acquisition rehab under the home program.
Okay, that's what I was saying. So they're not going to do in-home. They're just going to do strategic acquisition, and BNOY is going to do in-home.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Lauren?
Sorry, just thank you. So YNDC didn't apply for funding, or we're just not funding that portion of their work?
They apply for home funds under homeowner occupied this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, just for a quick overview. So under the home umbrella, what Beverly is explaining, there's two types of projects under the home umbrella. One is owner occupied, where we're fixing up the structures that the residents live in. And then the other one is what YNDC decided to focus on this time, which is to bring the vacant houses up to code for sale. So there's two types of projects under the same home umbrella funds. And so both community development agencies are applying for different projects under that umbrella.
Okay, Samantha?
Did you say 35 homes? BNOY has?
For BNOY, yes. Homeowner occupied, yes.
Okay, so my only
Go ahead, Samantha.
problem, thank you so much, is that I know that BNOY, we all know that BNOY and YNDC both have a list of owner occupied issues that need to be taken care of. How I don't 35 homes, they could, I just don't know that this is enough for. We know that YNDC has this list. We know that that BNOY has this list. That means that there's going to be a lot of things that we won't be able to get to. I don't know what that conversation looks like between BNOY if they're going to do this. I'm glad that they are, focusing on different things so that each organization could help the city. But I don't know if this is enough. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but it's 35 homes. I'm happy for that, but I think that there might be. I don't know how much we need to push to see if there's a way for them to do it. If that's not in their capacity, how do we continue to help our residents, and more so our seniors who I know are on this list and on both their lists. So that's just my comment.
And I to Nikki and to the CDA staff, where I guess to piggyback off of what Samantha said, where did the 35 come from? Is that what is feasible based on their staffing or based on the amount of funding available? Like where did?
Through the chair, it would be a combination of both. We have to look at capacity as far as the staff that they have available. We also have to look at the cost that it takes to rehab an entire home for sale versus the cost that it takes to bring a home up to code that a resident is living in. And it also, again, we have to make sure that we're focused on impact. What's the greatest impact? We can impact and also have some other supportive services or referrals that we can add to for owner-occupied homes that they're already in, of other subrecipients or other organizations that may be able to assist a homeowner already in their home. When it comes to a total rehab of a vacant structure, the cost to bring that up to code and make all of the modifications are generally more than it would be for a standard home that someone is already living in. A resident can apply for additional services already living in their home, more so than a business can apply to put services into a vacant home. So we had to look at those options as well when we were trying to decide how to split the budget. And again, we're limited on the funds that we receive, so we have to make sure that we're able to have the impact that we want and that we desire, and that we hope the agency can deliver on, under those restrictions.
Thank you. Lauren, and did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was also just to piggyback off of Samantha's. I know that when YDC was doing their program and they had acquired, what was that company? They acquired that other nonprofit last year, the year before, that it had originally done them. Both groups were doing in the hundreds. Like, they would give us their annual report and they were doing hundreds of homeowner repairs a year. So, I guess just what Samantha concerns, I share her concerns about, 30 is not getting us very far. How can we improve on that number?
Nikki?
I totally agree. And again, we have to look at the staff that they have available. Where at YNDC, they had AmeriCorps, they had Interfaith, helping them. What we need, and this is something that we've talked about internally, is we need more CDCs that can help, and we need more skilled, laborers in those fields that can help these agencies so we can have a greater impact. Other communities, Cleveland and Cincinnati, they have dozens of CDCs, and unfortunately, we have 2 that have come to the table. We really need help in trying to, and I know that's something Councilman Oliver has been saying for a long time. We need to train people here how to do these jobs, because then we'll continue to be stuck in the same situation. And it forces us to make tough decisions where it may look like we're favoring one CDC over another, but we're not. We have to look at the capacity that they have to be able to do the work, and we want to be able to build them up. So we need more people with these type of skill sets that can help BNOY and that can add to what they're trying to do. They do great work. We need to help add to that, but we can't when we're limited, and HUD is requiring us to look at the staff numbers and those type of things, the skill, how long they've been in business, how many times they've impacted in this area. We have to look at all of that. So it kind of puts us in a different type of disposition.
And I'm sorry, quickly, can you give me what is the dollar amount that it's recommended that they receive to do these 35 homes?
$124,297.
Okay. Lauren? Oh,
Through the chair, I just wanted to add, Interfaith was using CDBG funds and not home funds. So that was a bit of a difference to how they were able to have a more of an impact.
okay.
So
Lauren, and then Julius.
Does that mean that the limitation then is funding?
And the type of
Through the
repairs.
chair, it's the type of repairs and the type of requests, it's the type of funding request that they're asking for. So there's limitations in that request and the type of repairs. Some of these repairs can fall under home and some fall under CDBG. It just depends on when the applicant is applying for those
Right.
funds, what type they're committing to, what type of projects they're committing to.
And so just to follow up my original, sorry, you spurred that question with your last comment there. So my original question was actually around how, how they're picking 30 homes for this year. Is it this year? They have to complete them all this year? Do you know if they have some basic requirements?
Through the chair, I'll let Beverly answer that question with, as far as timeline to complete.
Home funds and CDBG funds are two very different programs and structured differently as far as statutory requirements, regulatory requirements, and so forth. Home funds can be out there for a longer period of time because of the fact that you have to do that house all the way up to the code. So you may be rebuilding, you're not just rehabbing, you're actually doing high tech rehabbing, like if there's a ceiling, if there's a furnace, if there's foundational things. So you're just taking electricity, everything. And with the CDBG funds, you could do a limited repair. You can go in and fix a furnace or put in new plumbing and so forth and be done with what you need to do, or what that particular client asks for you to do or needs to be done. You don't have to worry about if there's some type of wall repair or you need a porch repair. You do what needs to be done and what that client has asked to be repaired.
And I was gonna,
And so-
because I'm not sure if Lauren has a follow-up, but just as a quick point of interest to my colleagues and everybody, else that's watching the meeting, under the CDBG funding, there are additional funds that are going for the emergency repair, limited repair. So that maybe so then more houses are going to get done. This is a different source of funding. So there is still a lot of funding being allocated through CDBG specifically. But go ahead, Lauren, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, no, thank you. That was actually going to be my question if they were applying for money elsewhere. So thanks, Basha. I'm good.
And Julius, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So, Nikki, we know we need more organizations like Benoit and YNDC. If we were to get more organizations started or more organizations formed, does that mean there will be more CDBG funding from HUD to be able to facilitate those other entities?
Through the chair, that's a difficult question to answer because, HUD allocates, we're an entitlement city, so HUD allocates based on a formula. When we do reporting, we can show impact, whether or not they take, that into consideration when they're allocating the monies annually. And when it's time for our consolidated plan, that's probably one of the things they look at, what the impact is. And that's how it could be part of the formula that they use. So I think the greater impact we show, the greater opportunity we have to get more funding. But, to your point, more CDCs would mean spreading this money out a little thinner, but it can also result in faster impact in the community as well.
Thank you. Through the chair, follow up.
Yes, Julius.
So I know, does our department have, let's say, YNDC's blueprint? Because I think YNDC does their work so efficiently, and it's kind of like a guarantee with them. And I think that's why they're able to get funding from other sources as well. So do we have their blueprint to be able to, since this is something the city needs, are we able to help Benoit get to a base to where they can start to receive additional funding? Or when these other organizations get started, or even if the city wanted to take the lead and try to form some more organizations, do we have the blueprint to be able to either help Benoit get to a better spot or be able to train or help other organizations get started?
Through the chair,
Nikki?
that's a great question and a great point. Right now, we meet with YNDC on a regular basis. So yes, we do understand, and we do have, kind of their business plan, their business model, We understand their business model. What we need is what we're building now is internal capacity. We need staff that can do that, that can train other CDCs, you know, to work with the city, and getting them ready and building up BNOY to be, you know, equal partners to where YNDC is. But right now we're still team building. We're building our capacity, and we, you know, we've made a great stride, you know, towards that, but we're just not there yet. Once we get the capacity internally, we definitely, and part of that is our housing coordinator that we want to hire. So, and our CDBG support person. So we're moving towards that. We're just not there yet.
Final follow-up.
Yes, Julius.
Have we sat YNDC and Benoit down together and seen if whether or not they can collaborate, or whether or not it could be some, you know, steel sharpening steel type of moments?
Through the chair, not in the year and a half since I've been here, I've not had a joint meeting with them. We've had separate meetings with both agencies. That is something that we can definitely facilitate and see how we can. I mean, we do, if you know, looking at the budget, I think we do have a good cross mix of the skill set of each agency. But right now we would be comparing, you know, apples to grapes because of the capacity of each organization. But I see what you're saying. How can we share the load?
Yeah.
Differently.
How do we get like, how do we get Benoit to the point where they can get like AmeriCorps, you know, Vista volunteers or you know, all the different staffing that YNDC is able to pull in? Like, you know, I know sometimes, you know, companies aren't willing to share, but in this situation, the greater overall vision to help the entire. So, you know, I just think I would like to see kind of a coming together of the minds with YNDC and Benoit, and seeing if we can come up with a strategic plan between them both to go throughout the city.
Through the chair, thank you. I will definitely facilitate that conversation.
Any other questions? Good. We can go ahead and then move on.
Our next proposed budget is the ESG grant, Emergency Solutions Grant. And which one is that, Beverly? This one, I'm sorry, Exhibit A. That would be Exhibit A. No,
No, here I have it.
I'm sorry, I didn't print it in front of me. What's the exhibit number?
It's right here. I don't think it was.
Okay, it just says ESG recommendations 2021 on your in your packet. Do you want to give an overview of this? Beverly's going to give you an overview of those applicants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and these are the typical agencies that have been applying for the ESG funds: Catholic Charities, Compass Family and Community Service and Health Network of Northeast Ohio. And what they do is homeless provider services. So mostly homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and shelter operations. Let me look at it.
Any questions? Okay, it does not appear that there is any. Go ahead, and you guys can move forward. Or I'm sorry, Samantha has her hand up.
Thank you. Can you just go over the work from the administration side?
From our internal, or I don't understand the question.
So on the exhibit, you have each of the organizations that's requesting funds, and then you have administration. I'm assuming that's in-house.
Okay, administration, yes. Now with the Emergency Solutions Grant funds, the admin is for our agency, for the Community Development Agency. And then the other funds are with the Catholic Charities, for example, they can use part of their funding for their admin. Okay, so most of their funds are for actual provider services.
So under the administration funds, what do we support? What do we provide them in the way of support with that 22,000? Is that like
That 22,000 is for us to administer the program within
Okay.
CDA.
So I guess my question is, what does that, so if Sojourn House needs support in some way, or that's just for us to like answer questions, or that's for us to make our site visits, you know, I'm just like, I want to be clear as to what we do with
The grant and actually administering the grant. We do monitoring, we do compliance, we do their request for reimbursement, we draw funds, everything, any type of support that we supply, you know, for administering the HUD reports and anything. So it's for general support, general admin.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Beverly, you guys can move forward.
So now we're moving on to our proposed 47th year community development block grant dollars. And that is the larger spreadsheet draft that you have in front of you, where we've broken it down to public services, housing, public facilities, economic development. So we have the request and then our recommended budget on that as well.
Nikki, can you just briefly just mention, so those that are watching know how we derived at our the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So in the review process, we have to take in consideration the entire applicant's history, meaning we have to look at the narrative that was created by the applicant to score whether or not the impact is going to meet the HUD standards. So there's national objectives that have to be met. Can you hand me that application? There's national objectives that need to be met in order to qualify. So what we ended up doing is we had a qualification sheet. I need something with the, I think those were the qualification. I'm sorry. All right. So what we did is we have a scoring rating system, and we had to make sure by HUD standards that they fit in a low to moderate income, either person or area. We had to make sure that the target, and we also looked at each of these applicants. When we looked at whether or not it was in a target area, we had to look at the census tract. So we had to pull up the map, review the census tract, and make sure that it was in a CRA area. This is one of the reasons, and I'm just kind of moving over, kind of shifting here, but this is one of the reasons why we're proposing legislation to extend CRA over the entire city, because there are certain areas in the city that don't qualify as a target area. So there's some areas on the west side and some areas on the north side that don't qualify. So this makes it difficult when we're trying to score and make sure that we can get the benefit of having impact in these areas. We also have to look at justification. So does the documentation provided by the applicants justify the dollar amount that they're seeking? So justification in that means, is it a well-written narrative? Do you have the staff? What other funds are you, have you applied for? How many times have you applied for these funds? How have you used these funds in the past? What is your impact? So we had to take all of that into consideration. Then we also had to look at the effectiveness and reasonableness of the applicant. So do you have the human resources on staff to justify your ask? So not only does the cost and the impact, the money that you're receiving, do you have enough to impact the community, but also do you have funding that can support your internal staff to do this? Another thing we had to look at is activity management. Do you have staff that can manage this activity and these dollars? Who else other than us are going to be overseeing these funds? So that was another focus we had to look at. Again, I mentioned experience and past performance. We had to look at any findings that we've had from past dollars that we've given you. Have you spent them in a timely fashion? Did we have to take any funds back from you, or were we able to reimburse you all of the funds that you've received in the past? Also, we had to look at any other grants that you've received or denied. What was the reason for any denials? We had to take those into consideration. And the funding that you've requested from other sources, how much of it was going towards this activity? Because what HUD does not want us to do is fully fund an activity.
Right.
So we've had to make sure that our dollars were in support of an activity, but not the main source of those activities. So we had to use a lot of kind of critical thinking back and forth in grading that. We also created a checklist in order to make sure we were following the HUD guidelines in scoring these. And then after we came up with our recommendation, there was another layer, which was a risk analysis that once we sent it over to our finance team, with team of two, they had to do a risk analysis based on the amount of dollars that we received in past fundings that were available, the complexity of the project. Was it economic development project? Was it public service? What type of project it was? And one last thing I wanted to add, where is that? Oh. And all of what I just explained to you had to tie into what HUD considers a priority needs assessment. So everything that we explained, we had to look on and rate it by HUD's guidelines that tells you whether or not it's a high priority for HUD, a moderate priority, or low priority. It looked at the population, whether it was a high priority. Again, the area, what type of priority it was in the area. The goals are also rated. So we had to combine all of that to make sure that we were meeting the priority needs set out in the national standards by HUD. So when we took all of that information into consideration, again, impact being the center of it all, that is how we came up to determine whether or not, based on all of these factors, the dollar amount can meet the needs of the community.
Julius?
Thank you, through the chair. I can't say that I've ever heard an explanation for this that thorough before. So did you guys kind of revamp it this year, or is this the way you always do it?
This is the way we've always done it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess hearing the explanation like that,
Yes.
or how you get from point A to point B, was pretty enlightening. Thank you.
Through the chair, it took me to do it to be able to explain it. I had to literally do it to be able to explain it, but that is how we came up to those determinations. So
Follow up.
for letting me explain it.
So this year, we're not going to go through the issue of this person got a low score, but we're awarding them the money anyway, or like we got that all worked out.
Through the chair, this is where the score, now the HUD gives us a benchmark of 50. So anything under 50 cannot be considered. Anything 50 or over can be considered. But again, you can still get a low, some scored 95. So we knew that this was a good project to go forward. We had one that was like 52, 53 that was on the bench, on the kind of on the fence. But because of I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the form I just talked about. The HUD risk assessment, that allowed us to still fund them because the priority needs may have scored higher than their physical number score. So we still have to fall back on that priority needs of HUD. So we may say your narrative wasn't that strong. Doing it this way and falling back on the priority needs takes the person out of it and our own objective thought on how we may feel about an organization out of it. Because HUD tells us, regardless of your score, I want to know, is it a high priority need? Is it in a high area census tract? Is it an impact to the community? So we can say, well, we had bad experiences with this company, but HUD is saying the impact, the priority there, the need is there, figure out how to make it work.
Right.
So we may be able to fund that agency with a low score because the priority need is higher. So that takes our own opinion out of it.
Julius, follow up.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair, Nikki. So every applicant basically didn't make it to the point where they're on this list to be suggested for funding there, right?
Actually, this time around, every applicant did. There
Okay.
were none that were rejected, but there were some, like I said, that scored a much higher than others.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the process? If not, maybe we'll go to the subcategories, and then if anybody has questions pertaining to, say, for example, public services, and we'll just go down like that. Samantha?
Thank you. I would like to know how, and maybe Beverly can give us a brief overview of how the organizations, if they got the funding last year, how they fared. If you could just give, as we go through, if we're ever going through each organization, just how they fared in light of COVID, because a lot of them I see are back here again. So I just wanted to get that small update as well.
Okay, so did you want to go ahead and start on your?
Yeah, we could start with public service.
Through the chair, just for clarification, are we just doing them by category? And if there's a question, we can see how they.
I mean, I think for sake of time, and since we had this in advance and we had the applications available, I was thinking of just going by category, and if there's any specific questions that we can ask those at that time. Is the committee fine with that? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Nikki. Yeah, that's.
So under the public service category, again, we have to stay under a 15% cap. So you'll see on there that the amount requested may not be the dollar amount that they receive, based on the explanation that I gave. And also keeping in consideration that we can only go up to 50% cap. So this is another reason why you won't see every organization getting what they ask for, because there's a public service cap, because on that justification, those don't score as high of a priority as some of the others.
Okay.
Okay.
And these are all of the applicants, correct? In that
Yes,
category.
every single applicant, yes.
Any questions regarding the public services? Okay. So we
I'm
can
sorry.
go on.
I
Oh,
got-
go ahead, Julius.
So like for one of the public services where like prevent homelessness, like how do we track that? Like, how do we track that those dollars are actually being expended in the correct way?
I'm sorry, Councilman, which one did you, under public services? I'm not sure. That's all
I
your question.
might be looking at the wrong thing. Are we looking at Exhibit A?
It should be the one that says.
It looks like this.
Oh, I don't have that.
It is in an original packet sent.
On April 6th, I believe.
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Don't mind me.
All right.
I was gonna say if we'll try. I was gonna say I'll email it. Okay, and we could move on to housing.
Okay, so again, under housing, just because the applicants requested this amount, we still have to go by the amount we can spend per HUD on housing. So again, we had to look at those same factors and make sure the impact was there based on all those capacity obligations, but then also the amount of dollars that we received for that category. So that's why you'll see that 880,117 broken down into how we were able to fund the organization's requests.
Any questions regarding housing? Okay, so let's move on to public facilities.
Okay. Okay, we just had actually, under public facilities, any questions on those?
Yes, I actually have some questions. Because, and I'm sorry, because I looked at the application previously, but I don't recall this program for the sidewalk squad. Is that sidewalk citywide or just for the downtown area?
That one is city, well, I know it's cityscape, but it's actually for downtown and the near downtown area.
And it's for the replacement of sidewalks?
No, I think they just call it sidewalk squad. Now you read that one, right? Yeah. It's actually just for the planting and so forth. And I think they call it sidewalk squad also because they are concerned about the trash receptacles and different things like that. So it's actually the type of placement of receptacles and plantings in the sidewalk areas.
Through the chair, it's like a curb appeal project.
Oh, okay. And so I apologize. I'm gonna have to just come back and look at that application to get more details.
Yeah.
So, and same similar question for the greenhouse initiative. I'm assuming it's for what, to put a greenhouse downtown?
No, actually, no, I have, let me see what I have on that one. That is for renovating an existing greenhouse. Now it's located, and I can't remember the street, but it's in Census Tract. And it's going to serve as principally a facility for the neighborhood and social services and multiple purposes,
Okay.
including recreation.
Okay. And I have one more question, and then I'm sorry, I don't know if my colleagues have questions. Is this the category where, because I see our City of Youngstown fire equipment and street improvements are here, is this the category where our Parks Department should have applied for funding?
Well, the Park Department applied last year, and we actually funded them over a 5-year period, over the whole consolidated plan period.
Okay.
So they already applied for their funding and received it.
Yeah, last year, but if they would have applied for additional funding, though, where would that be under? It would be under public facilities?
It would be under public facility, yes.
Yeah, I wish they would have done so, because I know, we have a lot of extensive conversation about needing to, help, supplement their budget and subsidize. I wish they would have applied, I guess is my comment. Are there any questions from my colleagues about public facilities? No. Okay. If we could move on to economic development.
Sorry,
Yes, Samantha.
just the fire equipment, is that the lease on the truck? That's the is this, how far are we from
Yes,
that?
that's the lease.
Okay. And the Northeast homeowners, that's for their summer youth program?
It's still a public facility, and what they do is they hire youth to do like grass cutting and, beautification type projects, primarily on the east side.
Yeah, that's the program that they have on an annual basis. That's
Yes.
the same thing. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
And, Beverly, actually, how much did they receive last year?
I believe they received 27,000 last year.
Okay. Any other questions regarding public facilities? Great. Let's go ahead and move on to economic development.
Okay, now for that one, YNDC, this is a first time project and they applied for commercial rehab project at 29, very specific, 2915 Glenwood Avenue. And it's for exterior improvements. So it's for, yeah, they want to use this space for Black owned neighborhood businesses.
Through the chair, that's that area of where that plaza that caught on fire?
I think so.
Yeah, where the daycare was.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. I guess we can move on to other.
Okay, now I'm under other, we have housing admin. So that is a little bit different than our general admin. That would be for a person that we're going to hire to work with organizations like YNDC and BNOY to help them coordinate. So that is one of the reasons why we need that person in that position to help coordinate, and these funds will help fund that position too.
Thank you. Samantha had her hand raised.
I'm sorry, through the chair. So help me, listen, I understand that YNDC does a lot of work and they have a track record, but I'm counting almost $1 million, a little over 800,000 worth of these CDBG funds that is highly concentrated on that south side. And then as you just mentioned, having our staff be able to work with them for coordination. I am just, as I'm adding these numbers up, I get a heavy lift in neighborhood by neighborhood, but on an annual basis, even last year, we did a lot of resources going to that from Glenwood, Canfield Road, surrounding the outlying areas of the park. And it's just a constant conversation that we hear on different sides of town that this type of lift isn't happening across the city. And at least the last 3 years, we've been making this type of lift with YNDC on that side of town. Not that they're not doing things on a smaller scale everywhere else, but I just want to hear what's the timeline or the end goal to be able to transition to another neighborhood. So if there is a plan of action, can we talk about that?
And it just to piggyback off of that too. I know a large chunk of the funding goes to emergency repair and limited repair. I mean, that's what, like almost 700 of that goes to those two projects. Are those across the city? I believe those are citywide, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that was the point I was going to make. If you look at an application now, and this is something that we, like I said, we have bi-weekly meetings with YNDC, and this is our focus with them, is the entire city. This is why we've worked, again, to expand the census tract. But what you'll see in your application package is whenever they apply, they have to tell us which census tract they are going to impact. And what we've worked with YNDC is the census tract covers, those areas that they're going to impact, which is more broadly spread across the city than what you may have been experiencing in the past. Now, a lot of the home repairs and what you visually see is the impact in the kind of the YNDC neighborhood when it comes to, what do you call it? What we just talked about, the home dollars. Mm-hmm. But what you don't see is the impact inside the houses that is spread across the community when they're going in doing the limited repairs and replacements and those types of things. So it is getting done and it is spread across the city. We just need to, and this is another reason why we're moving in the direction of hiring a housing coordinator, so that we can make sure that the city's interest with the support of our CDCs is spread across the entire city.
Yeah, and I actually think, Nikki, based on when they give us a report of where things are getting done, I believe the last 2 years, the majority of the housing was in the first and second ward, which is the east side. So a majority of funding the last couple of years went to east side.
That is correct.
Yeah.
One of the things that you won't see YNDC do, if they stuck a sign everywhere that they did an improvement, you'd see the impact more. But I think because we know where they're centrally located, and we see the activity and the movement of the employees in that area, it seems like all the work is only being done in that area. But that's truly not the case. That's truly not the case.
Follow up.
Yes, Samantha.
So I mean, I get that, but we can say confidently that the visual impact and the highest level quality work, I should say, and that means in building houses and revitalizing the entire corridor, is happening in one side. It's happening there in that neighborhood. Let me say that. And that's what our constituents see across the city. Now, of course, they don't see the roof that they put on someone's house or the steps they put. They're not seeing that. But what they are seeing is high level, high quality things happening. And one thing I'll speak to most is the revitalization of the Glenwood corridor and the heavy target for that area. And there we're not seeing that on those other sides. So I'm just saying is where I know the street last year that we talked about, I can't call it, that butts up to Glenwood that they're working on, the Glenwood Avenue acquisition of these buildings. They are seeing the city pouring in resources and coming alongside YNDC for that area. So I guess my question is this another 3 years to fruition, or is it going to be a longer time then, and will we begin to shift to, McGuffey or to Jacobs, or to Belmont? Like what does that look like? And are we having that conversation? Because, we're putting in close to $1 million a year into this organization to do this level of revitalization. And year over year over year, we're doing this. How many more years are we going to do this? And when are we going to transition to other corridors that need a heavy lift, like a McGuffey or a Jacobs or Belmont?
Nikki, I just want to make a quick comment. I just want to make sure too that everyone understands when we're looking at all of these numbers, I just want to reiterate again that the majority of it, the 700,000, is spread along the city. And I believe last year was the first time we had a very specific corridor related project. What is it, like Mineral Springs or something that was like corridor specific, and I think that was $40,000. I just want to make sure just the public does understand that the majority is spread across the city. And like I said, last couple of years, it was mostly east side because that's where the greatest need was at that time. Lauren had her hand up and Councilman Oliver had his hand.
Yeah, just, some of the work that you're referencing, Samantha, was a concerted effort by, along Glenwood, Julius, myself, and Anita worked really hard to put a plan together for Glenwood over the last 4 or 5 years. Councilman Ray and myself worked really hard to put the beginnings of a plan together for Mahoning Avenue, and it's just getting started. Lasha did the same thing along South Avenue. So it's what you're seeing and what you're referencing is more than just YNDC's impact over there too. There was a lot there's been a lot of work and planning over the last handful of years by multiple entities to make the impacts that you're referring to. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, through the chair.
Samantha, 1 second. Councilman Oliver had his hand up, so I want to go ahead and let him go, and then you can address Lauren. Go ahead, Julius.
She can, since they talking to each other right now, she can go ahead and do her response.
Okay, Samantha.
Thank you. So no, I understand that it's an ongoing, and it was a heavy lift by everyone together. But what I'm just saying is that impact that we're seeing and the dollars that we're putting into it, YDC is responsible and is doing, great work. I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying is, when is there a timeline to begin to make a shift? And I'm saying this from the city perspective, since we are funding a lot of this and working with the community, the private entities, and working as our public entity, is there our next shift will happen in a year or two? Because I feel like that conversation has to happen. This is what I'm saying. I think that the work that they're doing is great, and that's what everyone is seeing, but they're like, okay, so people are hungry to see when it's going to happen in their neighborhood. And I keep saying McGuffey because that is one place that is banging on the back of my head. People are asking about what's going to happen there, and is the city going to pay attention there as they have paid attention to this area? So whether it's at YNDC is the entity that drives it, or it's a Benoit or another entity that drives it, I just want to know if we've talked about a timeline of transition.
Sasha, can I just respond to that real quick?
Yes. Mhm.
Sorry, just for your own knowledge, I think that, from Glenwood's perspective and from the ones that I've worked on, it's initiated by the city, by the council persons, that's where those conversations got started. So yes, YNDC was one of the big players in, say, the Glenwood, but there were more. There was the Playhouse. There was other things that we did along that corridor. Same with South Avenue. The park, the green team was involved in the South Avenue plan, and there was a lot. So the initiative, from at least my experience, came from a combination, mostly the city, not necessarily the entities, but it's a combination. So, the council people started it, honestly.
Thank you, Lauren.
Chair?
Nikki? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, to Lauren's point, that's actually exactly what I was going to say, is that we take the priority needs of the council person, and we try to branch out to see what other projects are going on. With regard to planning, we're planning now, with Anita for the corridor for Market Street. We're also in contact with, not in contact, but in partnership with WRTA. So we're looking to make sure that we're planning that along there. We're speaking in conversations with Mahoney County Land Bank to make sure that, we are acquiring and we're holding on to the land around that Market Street corridor so that we can redevelop it together with in a strategic way. We're also working with Mill Creek Metro Parks. We've reached out to them so that we can start planning impact areas instead of spreading it out. There's risk in spreading out HUD dollars. When HUD gives us money, this is what they want to see. They want to see us impact an entire neighborhood before we move on to another one. So now that we have, and they see that the ball's rolling with Glenwood Avenue corridor, now we have a greater opportunity to say, boom, we've done it, we've impacted that neighborhood. Now we can move on to McGuffey. McGuffey is definitely something. In a year and a half I've been here, I walked in the door talking about McGuffey. So we're definitely planning around McGuffey. There's a lot of zoning and land acquisition and issues over there, but that's something that we're trying to partner with BNOY to make sure that, they're centrally, their passion is the east side. Yeah. So, how can we've been partnering with them about that 422 corridor to work with them on how to beautify that. So those conversations are definitely happening, but we have to impact one neighborhood with HUD funds before we can, throw all of those resources into another one. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Nikki. Julius?
So, Nikki, you just basically answered my question before I asked it, or the point I was trying to make is, years ago, I know sitting down with trying to do a plan with YNDC, what they told me is their guidelines for the money they get required them to work within a specific area. And you know what I mean? So everything they're doing, the heavy lifting and everything is like, it's like you said, they had to get one area done before they move on to the next area. And I think that's something that's not being explained to the public well. So you get a lot of people saying like, oh, well, they don't do this over here, they don't do this over here. Well, I got 3-4 sides of town basically in my ward, and they all over my ward. So I know the work is getting done, but I think it needs to be explained to the public a little better how they work in a certain neighborhood, whether it be in transitional neighborhood, whatever, get that to a certain point, and then they move on to the next, and then they move on to the next. I guess the conversation should be where are they going next? So.
Right. And through the chair, if I can add, when we're approving this is telling us exactly where these dollars are going. But when we approve the consolidated plan and the annual action plan, we're saying where these dollars are going. So, in our team, we've talked internally about getting in front of the community and educating more. So as we build our staff, we'll definitely be able to communicate and helping them understand. Once we say yes to this is what we've already said. So we can't come back next year and say, why didn't you go on the south side? Because we approved this project where it is. So until that's done, we have to focus on where that impact is.
Yeah, I think the challenge is sometimes, like Julius mentioned, just the public isn't aware. It's almost like the grievances we face regarding the build grant. Why is it going downtown? Well, because it has to. It's funding specific. So it's just a matter of just, educating the public and letting them know.
Right. That's our responsibility, and we will, make sure we get out and do a better job educating the public.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. And just my final question. So it as just a point of encouragement and clarification, the heavy focus, Lauren, I don't know if there was a timeline developed in making this impact. I think if people knew that, in about 2 years, we'll be able to make the shift to the next area, the next corridor, that would be helpful in the pure communication of it all. Because like I said, YNDC is doing a great job of leading the charge and rallying all the troops, and the council people, you guys are doing a great job. I'm not saying that you guys are not, but I just really think that if there is at least a timeline, then we know where we can point to at the end of 2022, we will have started some work and be working towards another side of town and be able to point to all of the successes that we've had along the way. So.
Through the chair, I'd also like to add with YNDC, if you look at their financial, information that they submit, the vast majority of their funds come from private dollars. They are doing with us exactly what HUD wants them to do. They're using us for reimbursement of a portion of their dollars. They don't rely solely on our dollars. So the vast majority of their projects are driven by private dollars. They seek other funding constantly. So we're a small pot in their funding. So I just want to make sure I put that out there.
Thank you, Nikki. And just one other comment as well, just even regarding like timelines as an example, with when we collaborated with for South Avenue with Councilman Oliver, myself, and Councilwoman Davis, we did some things, together and reached out to, private and public entities for, say, I think it was like a course of 1 or 2 years, but thereafter it's continuous. So there is no ending point. Like I continue seeking grants continuously for my ward. So there is no ending, and I will never move on to another corridor. I will continue working with those colleagues to, keep improving South Avenue. And I'll work, as I did, for example, with Struthers, working on Midlothian and Youngstown Poland Road. So those are just continuous and ongoing. Any other questions or comments regarding the proposed budget of the CDBG funds?
No, but I got a comment through the chair.
Yeah, yes, Julius.
So Nikki, that's kind of what I meant by the blueprint. A lot of, you talk to any, resident in the city, they think that the city of Youngstown is fully funding YNDC to do everything they do. And that's not the case. So I was saying, how do we get Benoit to the same position to where they're not only dependent upon, you know, Youngstown city dollars or CDBG dollars, but they're able to leverage and get to the point where they can get federal dollars and other dollars coming in as well. I think that's what's going to be across the board when it comes to putting these entities together in the future. So if we can help them get to the point of YNDC, which could be challenging just given some of the phone calls I received, but it would be great if we could get Benoit up to the point of YNDC to be able to, you know, attack the east side and other sides of town at the same time.
Through the chair, we do have the mechanisms in place. Finally, at least I believe we do. Keep in mind, we have our partnership with Carmela Williams, who does technical assistance for minority business outreach to help and support their efforts and their business needs. We've also contracted with EAG, who can also help and support with grant writing services and other technical assistance. And again, with hiring a housing counselor, that would definitely be a step in the same direction that you're talking about. Beverly just, you know, provided information that we put $200,000 aside to do exactly that. So we're getting our internal mechanisms in place so that we can support more CDCs and definitely bring the ones that we have up to a more comparable level.
Follow up.
Yes,
Chair.
Julius.
I think also what we need to do, like I say, is continually to educate the public constantly, because so much work gets done every year that nobody knows about unless it's at their house. I think it would be, you know, very beneficial to both the city and our residents if we were, you know, somehow quarterly or whatever, just letting people know what was done. Like we accomplished this many houses with YNDC and Benoit. We got this done with such and such and such and such. You know what I mean? I think we really got to start, you know, tooting our horn about the good things we are getting done, so that our residents don't feel so, you know, left out, or like it's going to be forever before, you know, somebody gets to them. It's a suggestion.
So I think what Julie said is similar to maybe even like what the county does, how they do that. I don't know if they do it annually or, you know, bi-yearly, where they, you know, mail that report where all the tax dollars went and everything that was accomplished countywide. But go ahead, Nikki.
Well, I was going to say, through the chair, one thing that we have started doing here after we submitted our annual report last year, we just talked in our staff meeting about having quarterly CPED, you know, meetings so that we can keep everyone up to speed. And then as Beverly develops her staff and we can get out in the community more, we'll be able to do exactly that, you know, educate the community more. We just didn't have the capacity. So we kept our nose down working, but, you know, hopefully now that we're building our team, we can get out there and do exactly what Councilman recommended, because it does help.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense.
It does.
Thank you. Samantha?
Thank you. I know that we got through other, so I do have a question. I want to just go back up 1 second.
And in the meantime, I would like the record to reflect that Councilwoman Davis has joined us.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So my question about is in public service. Some of the programs, and just help me just find a point of clarity of the programs. We can fund paying of youth and youth programming, correct?
I'm not understanding. Could you rephrase that for me, Samantha, so I can make sure I answer your question?
Yes, one moment.
About to be me for you.
There you go, Julian. There you go.
Sorry about that. I was a little distracted. We can fund pay operation and services, and I just wanted to ask questions specifically about youth programs that we are working with. So Boys and Girls Club is a youth program. YBI is it a program, or is it, I saw that Boys and Girls Club, you're paying, is they want to pay kids. YBI, is that a program, or will they be paying kids or like providing a skill? I guess I just have a
So
question for each of those.
there's a lot of differences, and Samantha, this is where once we decide on an amount we're going to fund, we still have to work with the agency as far as establishing a correct eligible budget. You know,
Okay.
so I noticed some things within the application that I do need to work with the individual organizations to straighten out. And when we're talking about these, sometimes you will hear the term project. So HUD says project in one instance, and then you'll hear another term, activity. So they're not interchangeable, but sometimes in just layman's terms, we say project and activity. But in HUD, we have a project and then we attach an activity. So the activity would be working with the youth and so forth. And then a program is actually not supposed to be a whole agency program. It's supposed to be actually like a subset of a program to qualify for funding for HUD.
Okay, so once we figure out what we're going to be funding, then you will in turn work with those agencies on the exact activities that they're going to be requesting their
Yeah.
reimbursement for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That. Thank you.
Yes, Julius?
Thank you, through the chair. You know, the youth are very important to me in the city, but oftentimes when we have youth programs coming in the CDBG, it's never fully funded or even close. Our youth are one of the biggest issues we need to attack in the city in order to have an even greater future moving forward. So I would just, I know it's up to us to, you know, move these numbers around and everything, but what's the, is there an overall attack plan from CDBG and I guess the city itself and administration to be able to have a greater reach when it comes to dealing with our youth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually thought about this often, but we have to work as a community, as a council, and internally in our department to determine what type of priority we want. So if we want to work with youth, then we have to get others to have a mindset that we have to focus dollars. We have to be willing to focus those dollars, and then maybe we can't fund someone else because we can only use 15% of our funds for those types of programming. So we have to be responsible to say, well, maybe we can't fund everything that we really want to fund or all the good projects in lieu of funding a couple programs that are youth focused. You know, so we do have the power and the control to make those decisions, but we have to be willing to make that decision.
Through the chair, and this is where we have to be careful to help educate that in this circumstance, if we want to be youth focused, every applicant is not going to get something, because this year we want to be youth focused. We want to make an impact just on youth, so we can't spread this 15% all around. So I think, you know, if we're going to go that way, let's start educating now so that we can start weeding some of these other applicants off, because we want to be youth focused.
Yeah, because you know, that's just something, Julius, and having all the years working in this program, it becomes frustrating, you know, because we know what we want to do, but we're going to work harder to get the buy-in from everyone. We have to have that from everyone to let us change how we do. You know, our budgets show our priorities. You know, if that's our priority, our budget needs to show it.
Thank you for that. I think, you know, the Boys and Girls Club is a staple in our community. I think they should always be supported, just based off the impact that they have on our youth, particularly on the South Side, even though kids from all over go there. YBI, I'm not familiar with this program. I know YBI has played us in the past though, and I just would be interested in, if we do give them this money, how do we know it's actually going to go towards what they're saying? If, like I said, they've played us in the past on funds. I just need to come up with a kind of a strategic youth focused plan, and then pick those agencies, or whatever agencies are already in line with what we see for our city's youth moving forward. That's all.
And I agree. And what I'd like to do is keep building our dynamic internal team so that we can work externally with our dynamic partners and with council, and I think then we could really do what we really want to do, to get the impact that we want, serve the people that need to be served, and work our strategic plans.
Thank you.
So a question to my committee members. So do you, and I guess listening to Julius, what you had to say, did you want to, do we want to make some adjustments and recommend some changes and have it over to the CDA department? Like ASAP, like tomorrow.
Yeah, only thing
Want
is,
to take a day or so to kind of, now that we discussed it, to make some changes that we would like to see.
yeah, just last year kind of messed me up. So I need to understand how, what I mean, we supposed to do this without communicating, and I don't know, last confused me. I don't know if something went wrong or everything was good, but I'm confused about how we go about the process of moving money around without talking to each other, or I just don't know.
Yeah, Nikki. So how would that work? Would one of my committee members let me know, and then I would let you know as the chair of the committee what changes we would like?
Yeah, I would love for Valencia to chime in on process, just so that I'm not overstepping what council and we can do publicly. But I would think, if there's any recommended changes, that you would just send us the recommended changes based on what we presented.
Valencia?
That's absolutely correct. That is the purpose of this meeting. So any changes, revisions, deletions, additions should be verbally talked about today. The packet actually comes out today when the law department sends it up. So if this is something that Ms. Posterly wants to go on the 21st agenda, when we finish up this meeting, we'll have to let the law department know what changes are denoted, so that when the legislation comes up, it comes up correctly. So that's where you are with, timeline. If you're not going to push it through for Wednesday's meeting, then, you can do it some other time. But the conversation of what the actual changes need to happen within the committee at the committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Valencia. So Julius, potentially, would you like to, we can just, I guess for lack of better words, based on past experience, perhaps then move either summer the funding out of YBI and into the Boys and Girls Club to either be more funded, or then we could just fund their whole program.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to move some of the money from YBI into Boys and Girls Club. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the entrepreneurship. Even though I love entrepreneurship, especially for our youth, I just have I guess I haven't communicated with YBI since that last thing. So my recommendation would be to take 20,000 from YBI and move it down into Boys and Girls Club.
So I would agree with that, or potentially move all of it, because at that point, I remember last year, we then had, you know, giving an organization in too little wasn't going to give enough impact. So I almost, so potentially, I don't know how much of this other 65,000 that YBI had without they were able to supplement. But while Nikki or Beverly, while you guys look into that, Anita had her virtual hand up. Anita.
Oh, never mind. That's okay. I can wait on this.
Okay.
Never mind.
Lauren, do you have, what are your thoughts on moving funding from YBI to Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, I can support that. That's what you guys want to do, for sure.
May I ask the CDA department, would leaving $10,000 to YBI have enough of a significant impact, or would at that point, would it be better just to give that, you know, portion to Boys and Girls Club as well?
I had a couple things that I really wanted to say about the difference in the two types of projects. Now,
Okay.
I do agree that that is a very worthwhile type of program overall. The only thing about the program for this particular application is that there were youth that they wanted to pay to work with the park department. And some of the kids were too young to actually be on a payroll, you know, so they were talking about 6-year-olds all the way up to teens. So,
If I can jump in, please. When I'm looking at the budget description and how they plan on using all of their funding, they've also applied for some, they requested 65,000, they're committing 31.5. The total project budget is 192. So of the 192, they're asking for 65 from the city, correct? Yeah. What they want to do with this entire 192, they have staff costs, marketing programs, supplies and equipment. When it comes to activity, they're asking for $10,000 for activities and trips. And then a technical assistance of 10,000, equipment 25, supplies 12, marketing 10, and staff costs 115. So that is what consists of the 125, but for activities and trips is 10,000.
wait, for who's that?
This is
Boys and girls?
this is why.
YBI.
Yeah, this is why we got.
Okay.
Well, because we were talking, well,
Yeah.
her question was, will we still be able to impact them with 10?
Oh, okay.
So that's where I went to the budget to see specifically what the activity they're proposing. And for activities, they have 10,000 for activities and trips, but the rest of it is marketing, staffing, technical assistance, administrative costs.
Of the total project? Or of
Yes.
just of what they're, okay. So it sounds to me as though a small percentage is actually going to directly to the trips and the children. So at that point, if we're not going to give them a substantial amount of funding, they're not even going to be able to cover the cost of their staffing and equipment and marketing or whatever else they needed to even do the program. So for that reason, I would then say to move all of the funding over to Boys and Girls Club based off of what I just heard. Or am I not understanding?
Were you just describing YBI Boys and Girls Club?
I'm sorry, if you look at the attachment under their budget, and you probably don't have their application, but for the 65 they're requesting from us, what I gave you is a project breakdown of how they wanted to use the whole 192, but the 65 that they're requesting from us is just for staff. It's just to fund staff.
Okay.
That's what that 65 is for.
And this is YBI's new program, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they do need the staff in order to do the project.
Right. The staff is in order to do the project. They're asking us to support the staff of that whole 192.
Can you tell me how many, and I apologize but I don't have the application for me. How many kids this was going to impact? The 10,000 for the trips was going to be how many trips for how many kids?
Let me see, YBI,
50.
yeah. 50, and from youth 9 to 18.
Through the chair.
Yes, Anita?
Yes, I do have a question. YBI's youth program, is that exclusively for Youngstown children? Is that for children outside of the city?
All the CDBG dollars stay within the city or for youth residents.
So it would only be utilized for kids who are Youngstown residents.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I
think-
guess based off of what Anita's saying, so other kids are not even able to sign up for the program, or they are, but just the funding we're giving can only go to Youngstown kids. You know what I mean? Like how, or are they just restricting it to only, like other kids just can't even be part of the program?
Typically, CDBG funds, what HUD wants us to do is track the number of youth that were funded with our dollars for the city. And other youth, you know, it depends on the program. If they want to have other youth, like SMARTS program has kids from everywhere. And so that is their choice to do that.
But our funding can only impact our children in that census tract. And they have to document that funding has supported just the children that they've committed to in the city.
Julius?
My second recommendation would be to just make them equal. Take 10,000 from YBI, Boys and Girls Club, make them both 20,000. I know YBI has like some new people on board for this new program, and I do think entrepreneurship is very important. Learning work skills and being able to help out is important as well. Boys and Girls Club always needs as much help as they can get. So I say 20,000. That's my recommendation.
Okay, I'm fine with that, unless you have a different suggestion, Lauren.
I'm comfortable with that if we think that the, you know, as long as, I hate putting ourselves in a situation where we're giving everybody $1 and they can't do anything because we only gave them $1. So I'd rather get the most bang for our buck, which is not really a great phrase to use, but and fully fund one side or the other, or split it a little differently. But if Julius's recommendation is sufficient, you know, isn't going to put us in a situation where we're not helping them, then I'm good with that too. Like, I can support his recommendation.
I agree with Lauren.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking more too deeply into
Through the
project.
chair, I mean, if we supported the $20,000 towards their staffing costs, they would just have to find another source for the additional 45. But that would be, you know, as far as impact, it wasn't going towards an activity, it was going towards staffing costs. So that would be up to them to figure out how to staff based on the amount that we're proposing to them.
Okay, Samantha?
Thank you. When you say staffing, and I don't know, I don't have their full application, just the breakdown here. Are they adding staff to run this program, or is this a program that they have in place that they wish to expand? Maybe that would help provide some clarity for anyone.
Yeah, this is a new youth entrepreneurship program. So they wish to staff two full-time, and one part-time. at a cost of $115,000. So they were asking us to support that by $65,000. So we're saying that now we're going to support it by 20.
Okay, so I think the consensus of the committee is then to go ahead and take 10,000 of that and put it to the Boys and Girls Club. Are there any other changes, Lauren or Julius, you guys would like to see?
Through the chair.
Yes, Anita?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm driving, so I may have missed it, but was there any clarification as to if this was going to be going on the next council meeting? Or is this going to be going to 3 weeks away from now?
I believe next council meeting.
This is through the chair.
Nikki?
Yes, Nikki?
We submitted this in draft so that we can have the conversation and make any changes. The final adoption has to be after the public notice period ends. So on the timeline, we had May 5th as the final approval. So this is so we can go back and forth and have the conversations, make any adjustments to the draft before the final.
Thank you.
So we just tried to get ahead of it a little earlier this time.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds as though, I mean, I think that's the only adjustment that's being recommended, unless Julius and Lauren, did you guys have anything else? Lauren, no. Julius, do you have anything else, or you're still looking?
No, I would lost my place. I was looking at Cityscapes walking trail.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the reviews page that you guys gave us, it has the number 300, 500, 650. I'm assuming people. So let me, for example, what's in front of you right now? You have like YBI 50 people, SMART 650 people. I think YNDC has like 15,000. Is that how many people they have impacted with, or how many people they intend to impact with the dollars that are being allocated this year?
Sure, that's intended impact. That was based on the amount that they applied for.
Did you hear?
And yes, I did. And thank you. And my follow-up would be, some of these, some of their applicants have, of course, a track record, proven track record. We funded them year over year. How close to that mark do they, let's for instance, like Oka, I know they apply year over year, SMARTs. How close do they get to that mark, or how do we, where does that go in our decision making and in your rubric to approve them for the following year's funding? If they say 650 this year, how much weight is that? They did impact 650, or they impacted more, or they impacted less? How much weight is in that in your rubric?
Through the chair, that is a number that we track in and report to HUD. So we look at this in quarterly reports and annual reports. And if an organization is close to a number, this is an estimate. And this is an estimate based on being fully funded for what they asked for. So if we reduced it from 45,000, for example, to 10,000, then this number that I'm going to enter into a system to track would be less than 650. So, you know, once we decide the actual funding, these numbers that you're seeing now may be lowered. And we go by reasonableness, as far as if they reached it, and if they haven't reached it, then we would ask them why. You know, that is questioned on one of their reports. And what will you do to change that in the future?
And through the chair, it's in the first evaluation rating system. That is one of the questions that is rated. Experience and past performance. So it asks about the length of time in business, the experience in undertaking these projects, the complexity of the funds that they're receiving, can they handle it? In addition, they're evaluated in terms of past performance, to any other local, state, or federal program, attainment of objectives in a timely manner, expenditure of the funds, in compliance with the contract, timely submission of reporting, adhering to the scope of the services. So all of that is in our first even phase, I guess, of scoring. So if they didn't score high in that category, they're going to get what we were talking about, the lower number scores to even move on to the risk assessment.
Okay, thank you. Any other changes? No, we're good. Okay, thank you for presenting that. So just for the record again, we're going to remove 10,000 from the YBI and put it to the Boys and Girls Club Summer Youth Program under the Public Services. Moving on to unfinished business, there is none. Do we need a motion for it to be officially ask them to draft it?
Yes, ma'am. You just need a motion for everything that you discussed today to be officially sent up, because it is drafted, with your one amended change to the last piece, the CDBG dollars, and included in today's packet.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so may I have a motion, please?
Can I jump in, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry. So this is a draft to accept this the way it is, but then we're still going after the public. I just want to make sure we're clear on the timeline. After the public hearing or public notice period is over, that gives the public an opportunity to add input. Remember last time I sent up that last minute change and it caused all kind of confusion? That's why we have to have that separate special meeting to adopt the entire plan on the 5th, because the public has until the 31st to give us any input. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that.
Okay, thank you. So then potentially even after public input, we can then still make more recommendations of adjustments, or no? Is that why you said that?
They have, yeah, I have to look back, but I think it's in the notice that they have until a certain date to give us comments. Okay, the plan is up until the 1st, but I think they have until the 31st, not to double check that, to present their comments.
So if it shifts anything that we've talked about here, we would then have to discuss it and agree upon it. Then the final adoption of the entire plan has to be done after that, which is what we were recommending a special meeting on May 5th.
Yeah.
Okay,
because we'll put this change into the draft that's currently on public display. So we have to put this $10,000 change into a new draft and resubmit it
for public display.
Okay, thank you. Julius, and can I have a motion, please?
I just had a question real quick.
Yes.
Are there any additional funds? I know oftentimes there's money left over that can be, applied to one of these recipients. Is there any money left over last year?
Through the chair, not at this time, there isn't. And we don't know until we close out that fiscal year who didn't use their money. So at this time, no.
Oh, and also I just want you guys to be aware and keep in mind that we do not meet the day after an election. So there won't be a meeting that day.
Right, so we were requesting a special meeting on the to approve this.
Okay. Okay, may I have a motion, please?
So then, I'm sorry, it sounds like you don't need a motion. Sounds like you're gonna take our changes that we just gave you, update your document and repost it for public comment, and then we'll do the legislation. Is that, Nikki, what the next step is?
As long as there's no changes, after we post this up for public, then the final will be presented to you for a complete adoption of the entire plan. But I know last year there was like so much with this budget, we wanted to get the budget to you first in legislation form so we can look at it and agree on it. But yeah, we can do it that way too, just wait and adopt it all at one time.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess
Right,
if
Liz?
you want to write your legislation prior to anything coming back from, okay, so then I'll make a motion to create or update the legislation to reflect the changes we discussed here today, and then represent it.
Second.
Okay, and then I'll make a motion to adjourn, I guess, right?
Second.
We're adjourned at 11.